It was 1923 that German Mustache Man was indicted on charges of insurrection against the German government. He was tried, found guilty, then given a little slap on the wrist, and he became a convicted felon. Despite being treated more than fairly by the judge and judicial system, Angry Mustache Man claimed that the trial was nothing more than political persecution, a witch hunt, and successfully portrayed himself as the victim of this corrupt social democratic government. Captain Mustache Man was able to manipulate the public and positioned himself as the voice of the common people. Held frequent campaign rallies where he spoke against the elitists and cultural degeneracy, and branded the establishment as Marxists who would take from the good, hard-working German people and give it to the lazy, the foreigner, the undeserving, and only he could stop them and save the German people. He gave fiery speeches, claiming the educational system was indoctrinating the children to hate Germany, hate their traditional values, and promised to return Germany to greatness. To rally his base, Captain Mustache Man successfully targeted and blamed minorities for the nation's problems, exploiting already existing social divisions with a us versus them narrative. Many Germans swallowed this bait. Mustache Man and his Yahtzee party grew in public popularity, and he became chancellor in 1933. Once in power, he appointed German oligarchs to be his economic advisors. He proceeded to privatize government-run utilities, which caused his favorability to rapidly rise amongst the nation's economic elite as their profits soared. With the working class distracted, fighting over largely meaningless issues of culture war and ethnicity, the Yahtzees shut down labor unions and abolished strikes. Progressives and trade unionists were imprisoned and sent to concentration camps. Corporate profits skyrocketed to never-seen-before heights, while the German working class was living paycheck to paycheck. Captain Mustache Man quickly amassed great wealth and became a billionaire when adjusted to today's dollars. Rumors of dirty deals, kickbacks, and income tax evasions swirled around him at all times. But he kept these rumors at bay with the continued narrative of a political persecution. Nothing he was accused of was ever his fault, ever his doing. It was all just evidence of a corrupt system trying to stop him from making Germany great again. Multiple failed assassination attempts were also used as evidence to prove he was the chosen one to save Germany from the evil and corruption they were languishing under. He and his gang of oligarchs could get away with this scam so long as they continually had the enemy from within to blame. A deep state, if you will. Meanwhile, they themselves turned Germany into a government of a corporatocracy, a government run by corporations, and robbed the country blind. Mustache Man targeted a minority community to focus the public's anger and keep them distracted, revoking birthright citizenship for Jews, and began rounding them up for mass deportation, charging them with being illegally in the country. The German media under Yahtzee rule highlighted instances of violence by Jews to convince the public the Jewish immigrants were a danger to the real Germans. Captain Mustache Man worked swiftly to dismantle any democratic institutions that could supplant him and replace any people or mechanisms within the government that could be used against him with sworn loyalists. Loyalty was not just encouraged, it was demanded. Opposition was silenced by any means necessary. Media that dared question him was demonized as the enemy, as Marxists, a part of the deep state that needed to be eliminated. Any voice against him was used as fuel to feed his loyal followers. The Yahtzee propaganda minister, Joseph Goebbels, bragged about how Mustache Man was able to intimidate the media into giving him favorable coverage to where he didn't even need to give them any direct orders. They simply fell in line. Nazi regime and its followers collected books that they saw promoting degeneracy, or what would be considered today woke ideology, and burned them in large bonfires. They burned books that would promote class consciousness or ideas of equality. Berlin had a large LGBTQ community in the 1920s and even had the first transgender clinic. Nazis lit fire to it and burned it to the ground. LGBTQ people were sent to concentration camps and forced to wear triangle badges. Many of them were unalived in the Holocaust. The Nazi Party proclaimed that masculinity was under attack and manhood itself was being destroyed by the rise of feminism. In 1934, Hitler proclaimed a woman's world is her husband, her family, her children, and her house. Progressive laws that had provided women with equal rights were repealed, and new laws were introduced to restrict women to the home, to a role as wife and mother. They claimed to be bringing an end to this era of dangerous feminism that was destroying the heart of the German family. Abortion had been legal under German law. However, the Nazi Party worked swiftly to replace those laws, and doctors who performed abortions were faced with the death penalty. In spite of Mustache Man having declared himself Führer, meaning leader, or what we would call dictator, most Germans continued to go along unbothered, as did most of the world. Perhaps if they had had a history of an evil right-wing authoritarian dictator to look back upon and judge current events by, they would have recognized the signs and made better decisions. Unfortunately, most did not see what was coming or simply chose to ignore it. Or perhaps they were just hoping for the best. Whether by ignorance or complicity, the failing of the German people resulted in the unaliving of nearly 100 million people around the world. May we never allow this to happen again.